All right. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. We are about to launch into the next episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show. Powerful Conversations for Living Your Best Life. I'm VLYNN Hawkins. I'm your host, and I'm excited yet again because we got a great guest. And if you ever wanted to know the truth about health, wisdom, and wealth, how they marry each other, have kids, keep life flowing, you're going to hear about it right here. And today our guest is Dr. Matthew Kostek. And we're going to be in the conversation about how to achieve consistent, relevant, rational, habitual behaviors to improve your health. Now, are you ready for that? Because I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Dr. Matt. He's an certified in exercise physiology. He's a strength and conditioning specialist and a precision nutrition level 1 certified coach. And I'm excited. I am always excited to be in these conversations, but today I'm excited because as someone who has lived in the fitness world for decades, I'm getting to talk to another fitness professional and more. So without further ado, I'm going to say welcome, Dr. Matt. It's so great to have you here today.
Thanks, VLYNN. Pleasure's mine, though.
Oh, thanks. Well, everyone, you are going to be just so enamored by the conversation that's going to go on here today, because we're going to explore this topic. And those words that I mentioned, they're not just words to be in a title. They really have meaning. How do you achieve consistent, relevant, rational, habitual behaviors to improve your health, to optimize your health? Well, we're going to talk about that. First, let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Matt. He's earned a Ph.D. in exercise physiology. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist and a certified precision nutrition coach. He's CEO of the Matt K Training Exercise and Nutrition Coaching Company, and he works with busy professionals, teaching and training them to eat mindfully to bring strength, vitality, and satisfaction to life through the work that they do together. Dr. Matt wants more of his clients to know the value of using food as medicine and help people eat, move, and recover well. He's a guide, mentor, motivator, and the nutritionist, helping clients get to that vision of their healthiest and best selves. And I always like that because we need that. So again, welcome, Dr. Matt.
Thank you. And thanks for that introduction.
You're welcome. So I'm just going to get right into our first question. You seem like the kind of coach that everybody would want to have, helping with exercise and nutrition. You're the motivator and somebody who just prompts behavioral change. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, your journey, and what brought you to serving clients and helping people move forward in their journey to living their healthiest, more active, vitalized life.
Wow, sure. I'd love to. And thanks for asking that question, VLYNN. But I have always, since I can remember, since I was a kid, a teenager, I was always interested in how food affects, my performance. I always, I played sports as a kid and in college as well. And I always wanted to be faster and stronger. And I was really concerned about, what should I be eating to help me, stay that way or get better. So it was always there. So it was a natural fit for me to go to college and study exercise science. In fact, I liked it so much, I stayed with it all the way through, as you mentioned, getting a PhD. And along the way, I spent time as a personal trainer. And actually, I still do that now, but also as a health coach, also as an exercise physiologist, and even as a professor. I teach college classes as well. So I've seen, in doing research and getting experience working with folks, I've had a lot of opportunities to gain knowledge and share that with other folks. But for me, it was always just kind of a natural fit. on what can I do to make sure that I am helping myself, be the best that I can, and what foods should I be eating and what habits should I have. But again, thanks for answering that. But that brings me to today, and that's something that I'm still doing. I'm still learning more, and I'm still trying to apply that to and help folks achieve the life that they want.
That's awesome. Because again, I know that, especially as we move through the stage and age of, athleticism, a lot of us did so much more when we were younger. And it's like other things, you kind of age out of them, right? So I've aged out of doing a lot of the high intensity, just very focused training that I had done for decades. And I'm doing things differently. Are you seeing people like start with you at a younger age and then, they kind of modify their exercise, physiology, and nutrition as they age?
Actually, the biggest thing that I see people doing, and I've had this happen too, is that, we certainly age and we're certainly different when we're older than we were when we were younger. And it's never fair to compare, right, ourselves between now and 20, 25 years ago. But yeah, a lot of our habits and lifestyle changes, right, when we get older. And yeah, that does bring about change that affect how we can perform and what sort of things we can do. But I'm of the club that says, nothing has to be that way necessarily. There are ways, we can still improve. There are ways we can kind of get back some of that that we had when we were younger.
Well, again, as a former fitness professional and athlete, I mean, riding centuries and, running a couple of marathons, being a fitness coach and a personal trainer myself, I've always set what I called a desire map, and with myself. And then I used to do that with clients as well, so that, we both understood what was the desire of the work that we were doing together. And it's sad for me to say at this point, what I recognize is that what we know about the addition of the best nutritional information was not available to us, years ago. And more recently, there are so many more of us, athletes included, who are looking for this information. Is there a step in your coaching process where you actually get people to focus on what it is that they want and how nutrition actually comes into designing that roadmap to get there?
Sure. And I love the idea of the desire map, by the way. So thanks for throwing that out there. But yeah, I talk to folks about that all the time. One of the first things that we do is we talk about the wellness vision is one term that I use. So you imagine yourself, living your healthiest life. What sort of things are you doing? Who are you with? Where are you? Something that you want to, that you want to strive to. We call it the wellness vision, but really it's an outcome. What are we doing all this work for? What are all these goals for? What am I trying to get to? So that's one of the first things that we'll talk about. And it doesn't have to be detailed. It could just be a snapshot, just an image. That's all it needs to be. But we do want to capture that. And one of the articles that I wrote it's on my website, Capturing the Wellness Vision, there's different ways to do that. We can use a vision board. And I didn't invent that, that's been used by other folks as well. But the idea, it could be on your screen or it could be a physical like poster board. But the idea is that you capture images and you put them on there that remind you of that vision. So I've got a client who his kids are starting to play sports. He wants to be their coach and he wants to do this journey with them as they learn and get older. He wants to be able to do it, 10 years from now, still be able to play, catch, and, help them train. So pictures of him with his kids on that board is a reminder, of that vision. And he can add to that as he goes, and no one needs to see it. He doesn't have to show it to me. I don't need to see it. The idea is that it's there as a reminder that he can remind what he's working for. And we revisit that, every few months we'll go back and look at that. Maybe we can tweak it, adjust it, add more to it. Another way is I call making it real. So take that old baseball glove and stick it right on your desk. That will remind him of what he's trying to do, a reminder of that vision. And finally, the destination letter is kind of one of my favorites. You write yourself as you in that vision, living your healthiest life. You write yourself a letter to the present you. What's it like? What sort of things are you doing? What would you say to yourself? You can even mail it to yourself, but keep it handy to refer back to.
I love that. That's actually a very, very useful and effective tool. And I love how you brought that in. Now, I also remember reading on your website something about a what if exercise. What is that, and tell us why you use it? Is it effective, and what are some of the results that you've seen from using that?
Sure. So, when we're talking about the wellness vision, some folks really struggle with that. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years. I just want to lose some weight. I want to eat better. That's all. I want to, my blood pressure is high. I want to eat better, but they can't really go beyond that. So the what if is just another way to kind of tease out, putting some more words to those feelings that you're having, so what if you lost 20 pounds? What if you ran a marathon? What if you were eating, like you described the way you want to, more whole foods and healthier? What if that happened? And it kind of just keeps you thinking, keeps the train going, so we can kind of add some detail and maybe get something for that vision. It's almost like asking why. Sometimes we might say why. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? And we keep asking why. The idea is just to kind of tease that out, right? Tease that vision out. Let's get something up there. But yeah, a lot of folks have found it useful. I try it on myself at times. Like, oh, this really works. But yeah, that's what that's for.
Yeah, I use that on myself too. What if this client came through? What if, this meal turned out good that I'm experimenting on, right?
Yeah. Right. Then what? Then you got to start thinking about what if. You got to start thinking about it, right? Like, what if it does turn out well? Maybe I can.
Maybe I'll take it to that next Thanksgiving dinner so that others can get, a little insight into this whole food, plant-based world that we're trying to get back to. Because, people's health is a real issue these days. I was reading something not long ago that actually said that more than half of the US population is overweight, obese, and suffering from some illness. That's like three combinations of things, and it's a hard place to be when you think about, wanting to enjoy life. If you can't walk a block, how is that enjoying life? And when we think about the lifestyle impact, what are some of the things that you actually help your clients in doing to start that shift in lifestyle? Is it clean out their pantry? Is it buy a new pair of tennis shoes? Where do you start?
Right. Yeah. That's a great question. A lot of people have that question too when they come to see me, or perhaps you noticed that too, right? Like, I don't know where to start. There's so many things that have to be done, that I have to change, because that's what a lifestyle is, right? It's a whole like coalescence of all of our behaviors as well as our environment, right? So like where we live, where we sleep, where we work, how we get to work, the people that we're around. All those factor into our decisions, right? On, if we're talking about food, a decision on what to eat and what kind of diet to follow, right? But the other part of the lifestyle has to do with the habits and the things that I do every day that kind of shape, my lifestyle. So where do you start? What I like to do is start by, let's identify some time that's yours. And let's identify those changes you want to make. And let's identify the ones that you actually can change. I may not be able to change the people around me. I may not be able to change my coworkers or the environment that I'm working in, but there are habits I can change that I'm doing. So let's find out what those habits are. Which one sounds like a good one to start with? Is it something to do with just setting your alarm in the morning and getting up at a certain time to make sure you have time to make breakfast, as opposed to, say, rushing out the door and picking up something on the way? Is just setting the alarm. That might be a good place to start. Also, that time we're identifying should go into a calendar or a schedule or something, because that time is important. It's not something that, oh, I got this time, but it goes away when someone else needs something, right? We have to work on, that's your time, and we're going to use that time, right, to work on these steps, to work on these goals that you want to do, that you want to accomplish. So scheduling, identifying small changes that we can work on and habits we can work on. And then once we make headway on those things in the environment that we couldn't change before, we might be able to shift a little bit.
Great advice. Great advice. So, when we look at ourselves and the changes that we actually can make, if we're eating better, if we're exercising, we're actually moving through the world in a different way. Give us an idea of what you see or perceive. When we are working on ourselves in this way, does it have an impact in the world? Either our families, our communities, and beyond.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, when we think about the changes we'd like to see, like if we'd like to see, more availability of healthier food, if we'd like to see, you talked about earlier the obesity rates and the chronic disease rates, we want to see those change. If we want to see the environment, improve, if we want to see less pollution, it always starts with us, right? It starts with thinking about, where is this food that I'm eating coming from? Is this, is it something that I'm growing? Is it something that I'm getting, that's nearby? Is it being created in a factory somewhere else? Is it being grown in another country and shipped in? What's being added to this food? So I think, yeah, it starts with us. And if we all make smart choices, then yeah, I think that has a ripple, that has an effect on these other greater things that you mentioned, in the environment that we probably could do better with.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we have the opportunity to make an impact and be a part of that ripple effect where when we're getting better, other things are getting better as well.
Mm.
Now, I know that you're in the northwest part of the U.S., right? And I'm a sports fan. I was more of a sports fan years ago, but I followed college sports and professional sports, and I think a lot of it too was because I was a high performance athlete. But there are a lot of high performance high schools and college sports teams in your area. Do you work with a lot of athletes, and what are some of the biggest challenges that some of your clients actually face?
Sure. Okay, well, I have to backtrack just a little bit, um,
Okay.
because I'm actually in the Northeast.
East. Yeah. I'm thinking like Massachusetts, right? What?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I said West. Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, sure, but you know what? Our schools are better here anyways. They're better than these, so. um, but okay, so, great question. So my clients are typically adults who used to be competitive athletes in high school or college, and they're trying to regain some of that. Now, those are the folks I generally work with. Um, but, as a college teacher, I come across a lot of student athletes as well. Um, and I can tell you that collectively, among all the athletes or active adults, all of us, kind of collectively, the biggest thing that I notice, the biggest challenge is juggling. Um, there are often many priorities that people are juggling, and that actually makes it difficult, right, to spend the time and focus on, improving your diet or your performance as an athlete. So students have their academic obligations, and they have their obligations to their sport. They might have other obligations on top of that. Many of them work, so they have that as well. the clients that I tend to work with, the older, older adults, have work obligations, have family obligations, and a lot less time. And this kind of harks back to what we were saying earlier about how we're different. I think the big difference is just our obligations and priorities shift, and we get stuck, in that cycle, and it's hard to carve out time. But juggling all these things and still fitting in, the time to commit to, working on that vision or getting yourself to where you want to be.
Great, great. Um, Again, it's, I think, a very common challenge across the board for, the priorities of life to um, have us believe that we don't have time to eat right. We don't have time to sleep right, or we're not eating right and we can't sleep right. Um, what are some of the foods that you shift people to add to their diet initially, and then, as you're moving them on this journey, where do you start with them as far as the shift in nutrition?
I like to call it thinking on a continuum. Um, that's one thing that we work on. So when you say, what types of foods, I'm a big proponent of what we call, whole foods. So I can, grow a tomato in my garden, I can pick it and I can eat it. That's about as close as I can get to eating food as Mother Nature intended, the whole food, right? I can go down the street and I can buy something wrapped in a package, maybe a Twinkie or something. We call that food too. But I like to, have people think on that continuum of, okay, so we have the whole food and we have the highly processed food that was made in a laboratory or factory somewhere. The one that was, grown outside, the whole food, is packaged in a way that I can absorb it and use it, and use the nutrients and thrive on. The one that was packaged and prepared for me is one that's designed to make me want to eat it more, but the nutritional value is questionable on that. So, but it's continuum, because we can put foods along that continuum anywhere in there. So don't think of like good, bad, but we think of continuum. And we want most of our foods to be on that side, closer to that tomato, right? Closer to those whole foods. The more the food looks like it's supposed to, the more it is, a whole food. The more that tomato looks like a tomato, once I mash it up and add stuff to it, it doesn't look like a tomato anymore. So it moves it kind of down the continuum toward the other end. So just kind of deciding where the foods that I'm currently eating or you're currently eating lie on the continuum, and then what would constitute a shift on getting that food closer to, a whole food. So, and just, you mentioned, what foods do I like vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are a big one. It's a food that a lot of us don't get too much of. But that's kind of a big one to kind of start with. I think, we're talking about eating a fist-sized serving of vegetables, with your meal. So that might be one thing that we change. But a lot of it, like I said, it's getting the idea of that continuum on where does that food lie and how can we get more of your foods up on that other half closer to whole foods.
Yeah, and I love all of the whole plant foods that you've got in your background there.
Oh, yeah.
Looking nice and juicy and succulent.
Right. For example, right, these.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to
Yeah.
get those in there.
So, Dr. Matt, what does it mean to you to help people to learn about actually using food as medicine? One of the things that I consider this concept of using food as medicine is a disruptive concept. It's a mindset shift, because a lot of times people think medicine and they go immediately to pharma. Food actually, its historical value was that, the medicine doctors and the medicine people went to food to derive what our bodies needed for medicine. What does it mean for you to help people to learn about using food as medicine?
Sure. And I want to just go back to what you said earlier, when you talked about the obesity rates, and chronic disease that is highly prevalent today, and has been actually for the past 2 or 3 decades, much more prevalent than it had ever been before, as far as we know. Um, and that's a result of, of, of habits. That's a result of the daily habits that we do every day. You don't just wake up one day and have diabetes. That's been insidiously building up, over a long period of time. And sure, granted, some folks are more susceptible than others. But the bottom line is what we eat has a huge impact on that sort of thing. So I like to kind of pose it that way and say, if we're eating right, we can some of these can be reversed. They may never happen. And a lot of times we can actually get off the actual medicines we're on if we're eating the right foods. But I look at it that way. If we're eating the right foods and we're taking care of our bodies, those things may never, ever happen. And that it shouldn't be that way. That's not how it should be. We should all, be able to avoid those things.
Agreed. And I believe that a lot of it is that we just don't know. I mean, when I think about my generation and how as a kid, we used to go out in the backyard, in the side yard and, grab an apple off the tree, go to the side of the house and run the water and wash it off and then go chomp away, or pull that carrot out of the ground and same thing, go rinse it off and, you had your snack for the afternoon. And we don't live in times where that is happening anymore. We've got so many more urban jungles around. And there's so many, even where we have the neighborhoods, there's so many neighborhoods where neighbors don't even know their neighbors. So we're not getting outside. We're not taking advantage of what nature has provided for us. A lot of it because of things like smog and, just air density has shifted because of all the stuff going up into the atmosphere. And COVID provided some really challenging times for us. But it also provided a couple of gifts in it as well. As countries were shut down, we got to see places like Los Angeles not having any smog over the city, being able to see the Himalayas from certain parts in India where it could not be seen, had not been seen for 30 years. Have you seen any shifts like this that you find are worthy of mention?
Yeah, well, all the ones that you said are definitely at the top of the list. It's wonderful that we actually had a little bit of cleaner environment, because of that. But there's a lot less noise. There's a lot less, well, at least in my time, we've had a lot less traffic, and I did find that a lot of folks were outdoors walking a lot more and finding things to do outside. But I think all of those are huge improvements. And my hope is that it's these habits stick around, that we kind of appreciate that. Man, I never took time to walk my neighborhood before, and look at this. I should have been doing this all along. But yeah, less traffic noise. That the birds are coming back.
Yes, spring is in the air for sure. So let me kind of segue back into our conversation about really about movement. you know, movement is something that we want to stay in flow with, but suppose you've had an injury and you're looking at recovery. What are some of the things that you help people to focus on to maybe not so much speed up recovery, but create a stronger recovery cycle?
Sure. I mean, obviously, a lot of it would depend on the nature of the injury. But again, we're going to let's find out, what can you do? What are you able to do? I mean, obviously, there's things that you're not going to be able to do, right away with that injury. but what are you able to do? And that also might mean, what are your orders from the doctor? Have you seen a therapist? Have you, what kind of treatment have you had so far? So we definitely want to know that. But yeah, what can you do? So if it's a question that you can't run anymore, there are alternatives to that. So we can find out what some alternatives are, because I know that, getting in the pool is one, although that's kind of harder to do now. But there are floor routines and stretching routines. There's always something you can do, that you can get into to keep the habit of being active, alive, and try to maintain some of the training effect that you had prior to the injury. But that's kind of the main thing. It's kind of what can you do, and then kind of experimenting with what's available and what works. But yeah, I mean, as long as we know what the limitations are, we can find something for you to do to still be able to move, and even still kind of keep you on that path, before you want it to go. Mhm.
Great, great. And I love how you said, basically the key is you got to keep moving. You may not be able to do as much, well, can't do as much as you could have done, because of the time that's needed for healing. But even in that time of healing, movement is really a critical piece of it all, right? Keeping
Absolutely.
the blood flowing and
Mhm.
feeding your body the right nutrition so that the nutrients can come out of the foods and feed your body what it needs
Sure.
for the
Sure.
healing process.
Yep. And we know that the healing is affected. Diet actually does affect, how quickly you can heal. So there are ways to actually, even focus on the eating. That's another thing you could do, right? Okay, you can't move all that much, but we can still focus on what you're eating, right? Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I had a question come in from a single mom strapped for time. Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
It gets challenging to constantly have to pay attention to what you're eating. And kids are wickedly picky eaters. It's so much easier to just go fast food, peanut butter and jelly, or pop something in the microwave for all of us. What's a healthy choice for something fast and easy?
Healthy choice. All right. Well, you know, uh, so, all right, I'm a big fan of fruits and vegetables. Okay. So there are so many of them out there. Okay. There are so many that are out there. And they're easy to prepare as well. So, for instance, we have things like riced cauliflower, right? Can replace rice. There's a vegetable right there. Um, there are things like matchstick carrots. They're already sliced up. You can toss them in a salad. You can toss them in with your rice, actually, if you want, or your riced cauliflower if you want. There's even, some of that packaged frozen vegetables can be really easy too. I've got a bag of edamame. I put it in the microwave, 2 minutes, it's done. I pull it out, and you know what? Kids love that. My daughter, who's 6, asks for that all the time. Edamame in the pod. You pop it in your mouth. It's fun to eat. So there's another option that I find works pretty well. Another one that I've done, and this is a weird one. But I do this, right? I do this. That's why I'm sharing it. So I've got an acorn squash, chop it in half, scoop out the seeds, upside down, a little bit of water in the microwave, 7, 8 minutes, pull it out, and you can scoop and eat it that way. And if the taste isn't there for you, you can drop a little yogurt in there, a little cinnamon, something like that. Um, that's another like healthy choice that doesn't take that long, and it's easy. Like you can have those stockpiled in your cupboard, and you just chop, scoop, cook.
I love
I've
that.
tried it on kids. It works on kids. I've tried it. Maybe not all kids, but it does work.
What a great idea. And I think, too, with kids, as we're talking about kids, kids are so ready for the most part to experiment on stuff. And it amazes me because one of the other statistics that I was reading not long ago was that this generation of kids eating the way that they're eating, they will not outlive their parents. This is the first generation of kids who are
Heard about that.
predicted
Yeah.
to not outlive their parents.
Mhm.
And I think that that is sad. I think that it's time for us to rally the troops and figure out what we can get kids to eat, even if they've had the first few years being indoctrinated into the bad habits or the bad, okay, not the bad foods, but foods
Yeah.
that are not best for us.
Sure. Yeah.
And, just making it fun, growing a garden with your kids, letting them, see what an apple tree really looks like and pull an apple off a tree. I know that there's, a generation of kids who never had that opportunity.
Mhm.
I consider myself fortunate that when I was a kid, I was able to go out, in the backyard and climb the tree, climb out to the limb and pull an apple off.
Mhm.
I know that, over the decades, we've gotten so indoctrinated to eating the foods that make the food industry wealthy and have made us sick.
Sure.
And it's time to change all of that, people. We want to help you to learn how to look at food differently, look at what your body needs. And if you think about it, our bodies are so smart. They tell us what they like. They
Mhm.
tell us what they don't like. And
Mm.
what we've learned to do is not listen anymore.
Mhm.
And I've recently created a challenge for some friends and family. So since the first of the year, it was 90-day whole food, plant-based, and that's it. And, for the most part, the first 2 months, everyone did it, except for maybe a day or two or something here and there, which is not a problem. But what they have found out is that they like it, they're feeling better, feeling lighter, and moving through the world in a different way. um, when you start working with your clients and you're working on them making these changes, what are some of the things that they're coming back and telling you that they're experiencing?
Right. Um, a lot of times I do hear the one like, yeah, I just feel better. I feel like I have more energy. Um, I feel like the food is, how can I say, it's digesting. Like I'm eating it and I feel good when I'm done. And I want to keep eating this way. Or I've had a lot of folks say, it was hard at first, but I'm really glad that I made that effort because once I started doing it, it now it's easy. It was hard at first, but now it's easy because I integrated it, into my habits. I replaced some of those, habits I had before. Um, and it can be really easy. And also, for the mom strapped for time, an even easier step might be is you just pick one thing in that meal. So I got the peanut butter and jelly. Okay, can we use whole wheat bread instead of white bread? Have the peanut butter and jelly still. Can we instead of okay, let's not do that. Maybe you don't like the whole wheat. Fine. Can we chop up a banana and put that inside? And just add that one little thing. That's all, and just make that a habit. And once we start integrating some of these whole foods, we can say, oh, over time we keep making little changes. And like, oh, there it is, and it isn't so hard. Mhm.
You're right. And I love it because people actually, and I was there once upon a time. I was like, wow, I can't believe that I feel this good. And,
Mhm.
there are some really deep revelations that come from that.
Mhm.
And and one of well, I think it was my daughter said that one of her days off, she ate something and it was like within the hour, she was already feeling like, oh no, this is not working for me. It actually was making her feel ill.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that one of the doctors that I had interviewed one time said, we are our best experiment.
Mhm.
And it is up to us to try these different things. And because I remember the time when I could not get a Brussels sprout to my nose. It was like, ugh.
I'm sorry.
And now I'm like, I love Brussels sprouts.
Hey, congrats.
So do you find that you have clients who are actually giving you stories similar to that? Like, I used to hate this and now?
Yeah, I do get that actually. It's like, yeah, they'll say like, I'm so glad that we tried this. And I like what you said about the doctor you interviewed. We are our best experiment, and it's true. And a lot of what I do with my clients, and probably what other coaches are doing, is yeah, we're trying something. If it works, yeah, we keep doing it. If it doesn't work, okay, toss it out. We'll try something else. Not every food is perfect for everybody, I should say, right? Um,
Right, right,
yeah.
right.
And our digestive system has a direct line connection to our brain. They're connected, like there are nerves connecting them and other things. So yeah, you can eat something and it can actually affect how you feel later, like directly. Mhm.
So, Dr. Matt, I want our audience to know that there will be a link at the bottom of the video where they'll be able to reach out to you and connect with you via your website. I know that we're going to put a phone number there as well. But as we bring our conversation to a close today, which by the way was so great, it's so exciting. Thank you. Um,
Likewise. Mhm.
is there some wisdom that you would like to impart to our audience that you feel is important for them to know and to walk away with today that will have a positive impact on them and the world, that ripple effect?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity actually to do this. But I think maybe the one thing that is super important, if you're trying to make a change, a big change in your lifestyle, the way you eat, becoming more active, you have goals to improve yourself in some way, understand that it's a step-by-step process, right? And it's a journey, and we should embrace that, right? Because it can be very satisfying. Getting there can be very satisfying. Even if we don't actually get exactly there, it can still be very satisfying, and we can have a huge impact on our health. And that ripple effect, we can contribute to that, affecting those around us, uh, even if we're just trying to do better. And also, uh, consider getting a coach. It's very helpful to have someone to help guide you, to help kind of narrow down what change you should be making, what steps you should be taking, because it can be overwhelming and it's something that can be hard. If we're really strapped for time or there's a lot of obligations that we're juggling, getting the coach can really help. Whether it's me or someone else, someone that fits you, that works well with you. Thanks.
Awesome, awesome wisdom. I love it when it all comes together like that. And I want to thank you, Dr. Matt, for being with us here today. I want to thank our audience for showing up, for asking for conversations like this so that you can learn more about how you can live a more optimal, healthy life. And why don't we just say really quickly, Dr. Matt, what is your website where people can find you?
Sure. It's www.mattktraining, one word, Matt K Training. Actually, just like you see on the thing there, mattktraining.com.
Awesome. Awesome. So reach out to Dr. Matt if you have questions or you want to talk about hiring him, because we know that it takes our own desire and a little bit of willpower, but more than that, it takes seeing this journey reap some rewards that will help you to keep going. But it also helps to have somebody that's there, that's your champion, that can help you move forward. And if you are a healthpreneur and would like to be interviewed on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show, reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, send me a PM, message me, and or email me at vlynn@p3academy.com. Let's connect. If you are someone who's looking to step onto this journey and you enjoyed our conversation, comment below. Tell us that and ask your question. What would you like to see in an upcoming episode? Because we're bringing in expertise from all over the globe, because our goal as healthpreneurs is to help you to live your best life. So we've got some exciting things coming up for you in the near future. Stay tuned, turn on your notifications, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, be well, live, love, and be a bigger positive impact maker. And we'll see you right here next time. Bye for now.